Hi, my name is Jenny Lauren Dowden for Conduit News, and today we have law professor Robert Steinbuch joining us. As many of you know, he's a law professor at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, but today he is representing his own ideas and beliefs, and he is here as a Republican primary candidate for House District 73. Hello.
Hey, how are you, Jenny? Good to see you again.
Great to have you back on. First, just tell us how your race is going, how things are there in Little Rock.
Well, I think it's going pretty well. We're starting to get our message out there. I'm hearing back from people that the primary issue that I raised is safety and security for the citizens of Little Rock, of course, for the citizens of Arkansas in general, but it's of a particular concern to my constituents because we have seen such an uptick in violent crime that people are understandably very worried. And while I campaign on this issue and I talk about the actual facts, the statistics about this remarkable increase in crime, the only thing that I've seen my primary opponent put out is a suggestion that there be a joint task force on graffiti in the city. So, it's kind of funny when you talk about priorities. This is the problem in general, by the way, with government. It tries to do too many things, and therefore it doesn't do any of them well.
Right.
The first responsibility of government is to secure the safety and security of its citizens. And my primary opponent isn't talking about it at all.
Well, let's talk about just take this weekend in Little Rock as an example. Several shootings, homicide. I was telling you, Pizza the Action. There was a shooting there over the weekend. That was my family restaurant for many decades. Tragic to see that things are happening right there in Stiff Station, close to, Kavanaugh, Cantrell. It seems as though where you would have segments of crime in certain areas, now it's just a free-for-all. You never know what's going to happen, where, at what time of day. We look at Frank Scott. It's amazing that he's actually announced another run as mayor. What can be done tangibly? What would you do if you were elected to office? Okay, here are the steps we're going to take immediately to deal with this.
Yeah, thank you, because it's exactly the right question, and it's exactly the right issue. And crime is everywhere. I told you in a previous interview with you about this carjacking, 20 bullets shot here in the Heights. Pleasant Valley is inundated on all sides with crime, and it's such a wonderful little community there that is spending resources and is fearful for their safety. Here's what I would do. I will, when elected, create concurrent jurisdictions for the state police along with the city police. And I will create joint task forces between the state police and the city police. And I will increase the number of cops on the street doing what they're supposed to do. I will put 2 people in a car because that creates greater safety for the community, not in addition to greater security for the police officers. Because when one person gets out of the car, it's very hard to do anything. I was once, many years ago, one might say a prior lifetime ago, an auxiliary police officer. And we were always 2 people in a car. And we would then supplement the full-time police officers. And I remember getting a call to go supplement a full-time police officer when he had to go into a house following a domestic issue. And he was very happy to see us, needless to say, and we were happy to serve. And we need more cops on the street, not bureaucrats, not paper pushers. And this is what the cops want to do too, by the way. They don't want to be stuck behind a desk. They want to get out there and enforce the law. So I want combination joint task forces and concurrent jurisdiction so that we immediately increase the number of cops on the street.
Yeah, and this really speaks to what we're seeing, really speaks to the undercurrent of how these bureaucrats and those in office right now view crime, view law enforcement, view safety of these cities. And that's what really needs to be changed. Let's talk about also another undercurrent that's kind of really just taken over here in Arkansas, and that is capitulating to corporations here, whether it be Walmart, Tyson, JB Hunt, the Chamber. Talk to us about what you're seeing and how that is affecting these primary races right now.
Yeah, well, it's really remarkable. You will recall, of course, that I testified in the Arkansas legislature, right after the Chamber of Commerce and Tyson's sat there like two Muppets, that sat up in the balcony. You remember that old,
Yes.
not cartoon, but the Muppets where the two old guys were just criticizing everybody. These two Muppets get up there and they start telling these legislators, and of course the public at large, how they've decided for the employees of big business across this state, their team, in fact, decided what's good for these individuals, and that they will mandate at the corporate level that these individuals go get a vaccine.
Yeah.
I've said once, I've said 1,000 times on your show, Jim, I've been vaccinated. I don't have a problem getting a vaccine, but I made that choice. And I'm not going to have big business make that choice for me. And let's be clear where we draw the line. Yes, businesses control their businesses. So you can put up a sign that says, no shirt, no shoes, no service, right? If someone comes in and they're not properly attired, well, you're not going to serve them and you're going to ask them perhaps to leave. But this is not about what takes place in the business. This is literally the businesses telling you and me and everybody else, on your free time, you should go get this medical service. Could you imagine if they also said, well, we're going to mandate colonoscopies and we're going to film too, right? Like, it's just absurd that they have such hubris to sit there and to dictate to you what's good for you in your personal life. That is such corporate overreach. And let me be clear, my father was a small businessman for 25 years. I love business, and I particularly like small business, but even big business. I go to Walmart all the time. I go to Costco all the time. I have a Sam's Club membership, and I go there as well. I've got no problem with big business, as long as they're not trying to intrude onto my personal life. And so let's fast forward. As you saw at that table were Tyson's, one of these big mega businesses, and this organization called the Chamber of Commerce. Now, for your listeners who may not know what this insider corporate group is, they're a lobbyist. They're literally a lobbyist. That's why they were there. They were paid to be there. They weren't there out of the goodness of their own heart. They're paid to be there. And they're paid to lobby for the interests of big business, whether or not those interests align with the interests of the individual. And of course, they did not align then, right?
Right. Well, let's just take a pause and talk about some of those interests that the chamber actually lobbied for. As you're talking about, Randy Zook was there, and they say that they are for small businesses. But when you see what they were actually there lobbying for, that I don't think there were many small businesses who agreed with them. One, they lobbied against legislation to protect children from being subjected to sex change procedures. We remember that. And then two other things that they lobbied heavily against. They were there in every committee hearing that you were. It was against legislation to protect the conscience and religious freedom rights of healthcare workers. That included their religious exemptions. And then they also lobbied against legislation to protect unvaxxed workers from employment mandates. And so, I grew up in a very small town. My aunt was on the chamber, and I think there's such a disconnect between these very small rural towns and what the state chamber at the Capitol is lobbying for. No, small businesses and your average Arkansas worker, they are not there agreeing with what Randy Zook is there lobbying for.
100%. You really bring up an interesting point. There are these, there's the state chamber, which is exactly the organization, the lobbyist group lobbying against your interests every day in the Capitol. And then there are these little chamber organizations, many of which are just wonderful because they represent small business.
They're local, right?
They're not representing Walmart in a little town. By the way, Walmart doesn't need representation. Walmart does absolutely fine. They're an outstanding corporation. I love much of what they do in terms of what they make available to the consumer. I'm not anti-big business, but I'm also not anti-small business. And when Randy Zook and the state Chamber of Commerce get up there and argue against individual rights, against what's good for small business, and only for the monopolistic interests of mega corporations, that doesn't serve the public at all. And here's the real tragedy. You recall that previously on your show, I talked about how a state agency, the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, funnels hundreds of thousands of dollars to the state chamber of commerce. That's, as far as I'm concerned, cronyism and corruption. And by the way, guess who's on the leadership of that state agency?
Can't imagine.
Yeah,
Your opponent.
my primary opponent is on the leadership of such cronyism and corruption. But it gets even worse. You've been watching it, and you know what I've been watching recently? The State Chamber of Commerce is now coming out and funding and endorsing primary and general election candidates.
Right.
So here's what's happening. Our tax dollars go to a state agency that misappropriates that money and gives it to private lobbyists lobbying against our interests. And now not only do they lobby against our interests, they're paying off candidates to say, well, if you're with us, we're going to give you money. If you're with us, we're going to endorse you. So you're paying for candidates to be endorsed by lobbyists with your money. It's downright corrupt.
It is. And you know, we have at Conduit, we've said that it is time for these business owners, conservative business owners, to stop funding the chamber unless they want their money to go to these woke corporations. And we've also written several articles about the state chamber. The latest one that you're referencing, it was called State Funds to Anti-Conservative Group, which it is. And so we want people to be aware of, you know, what they're entering into with this primary election season. More likely than not, if you see a person is represented by the state chamber and you hold conservative values and principles, you want to vote for the other candidate.
Well, the state chamber held a I don't know a fundraiser at their offices across the street from the Capitol. Oh, they're close to the Capitol, because when you're in on lobby, when you're in on this corporate corruption culture that exists today, you want to be as close as you can be to the power structure. So on one hand, they're getting money handed to them by the governor, the government rather. And then on the other hand, they turn around and they hand it out to candidates for the state legislature. Now, if that's not a system to buy politicians, I don't know what is.
You're right. Well, let's switch gears. There are a few other things that I want to talk to you about. Recently, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, she signed a bill to repeal concealed carry permit fees. This is something that we've talked about on our show before. We believe that it is just an additional hoop that prevents people from exercising their rights. But then the governor in Ohio just did away with the concealed carry license altogether. You are a big 2A proponent. You're involved in cases regarding 2A, protecting those rights. Tell us what you think about the bills that South Dakota governor, as well as the governor of Ohio, recently proposed and signed, and then what you would like to see happen here in Arkansas.
Yeah, they're great. Incidentally, the governor of Ohio was a U.S. senator, and I worked for him in the U.S. Senate on the Senate Judiciary Committee, and I was his crime counsel. My portfolio was crime. And so when I said that I'm running to restore law and order, safety and security to my district and to help the state, of course, in the entirety, I know of what I speak, right? When my primary opponent is worried about graffiti, I'm worried about murder. I'm worried about violence. My primary opponent is worried about whether the bridge is pretty with the graffiti, and it's not, to be clear, as his yacht sails underneath it, literally. These proposals are exactly the right approach. First of all, why are we paying to have a license to do what the Constitution guarantees us the right to do, right? So I've got to pay for, you know what they used to call this when it was regarding voting? A poll tax. You know what the Supreme Court said about that? Illegal, unconstitutional, struck it down. Yet we pay a tax to carry a firearm that's a guaranteed right pursuant to the Constitution. So no fees, for rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution. Moreover, what my former boss did in Ohio, we should do here. We should eliminate a license to carry concealed. Now, to be clear, I would maintain the licensing scheme for those who want to do it for the purposes of reciprocity. But for the purpose of carrying in-state concealed, well, the Constitution already guarantees you that right. So we don't need to give you a license. In fact, it's unconstitutional to require you to get a license to do what you're already legally entitled to do.
Something else that I want to get your opinion on, in California, there was an article about the public school system there. They are de-emphasizing curriculum and courses, specifically those advanced AP classes. You know, Arkansans will say, oh, well, that's not happening here yet. Our courses and classes are still very rigorous. Wrong. Mike Masterson recently over the weekend wrote an article about the Fayetteville Public Schools, that because what they're doing, it's all in the name of equity. And so Masterson wrote an article about Fayetteville Public Schools, their equity plan, and what we're seeing there. There are specific emails from AP teachers at the Fayetteville High School who are pushing back, saying, well, they actually believe in the 5-year equity plan. They are saying that de-emphasizing these rigorous classes benefit no student. When this is also another undercurrent here, that is just entrenched in the Department of Education, Superintendent Association, all of these different organizations, how do you uproot this and get back to reading, writing, arithmetic? And many people are saying, we've seen DeSantis sign so many bills lately regarding transparency in education. They're calling this the year of the parent. So what can we do to improve education here?
A lot. And as you know, Ginny, I worked on that case up in Fayetteville area.
I remember.
For Isla Campbell to get those records that revealed the fact that the school district is propagating CRT. They are selling to their students. They are indoctrinating their students in critical race theory, and they shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
And so the claims that that's not happening are false. Indeed, I've seen video from the Little Rock School District showing exactly the same thing. So the notion that this is not already permeating our school systems is simply false. As I talked with you about previously regarding crime, all cities exist at the pleasure of the state. So the state is the ultimate authority. And I've jokingly said, we brought them into this world, we can take them out about the cities. Now, nobody's looking to eliminate Little Rock or any other city as an entity, but the state sets the law, not the other way around. This is not wag the dog. The state determines what goes on in the state. It's all the property and the right of the people of the state of Arkansas. And so the state can certainly mandate, if I may borrow a term that the left loves to use, they can set the agenda for education. And that agenda, as you said, reading, writing, arithmetic, the basics, the foundations, and all of it. Not, oh, well, we're not going to teach calculus because some students can't do calculus. That's right, some students can't do calculus. And so they can do something else. But that doesn't mean those students who can do calculus don't have that opportunity. And it's this attempt to get to the lowest common denominator of education, which of course results in lousy education across the board. And we will not be able to compete within this country and within this world. The world is laughing at us, Jimmy, every time we dumb down our education. They love it. They applaud it. They encourage it. They invest in it. They want us to not be successful. And these folks on these school boards that are making these decisions are acting in concert, whether they know it or not. They are giving a license to these foreign nations that cheer the dumbing down of American education. And I won't tolerate it. Frankly, when I get into the legislature, one of the key committees that I want to serve on, given my background that you referenced coming into this interview, is the Education Committee. We need to straighten out what's going on in education We need to not be captive to unions, to administrators, to anybody, but who? The public. The public owns the education system. I can't tell you how many times I've heard school officials say, well, at our school on the school's property. Wait, what? It's not the school's property at all. You know whose property it is? Your property. It's my property. We own those schools, and they need to be more responsive to the public, to the citizens, and to what our interests are.
Well, before you go, and you mentioned that, who owns the schools, school choice is such a prevalent topic right now. Everyone is talking about it. We're seeing many other states fund school choice and put that, at the forefront. We're seeing that some legislators or even those running for office, they kind of, ride the fence on that. Well, we want to make sure that, families and parents and students have options, but then also that sometimes in these rural areas, the school district is the largest employer of that area. So it's like they're playing both sides of it. You either let the money follow the child or you don't. What do you say?
It's so funny that you point out the fact that some politicians talk out of both sides of their mouths. I mean, that's just remarkable.
No, everybody's tired of it.
Oh, we really are. And the bureaucrats are even worse, right? So here's my thought on it. And there's actually a level of nuance involved in it. First of all, I am for vouchers, but that doesn't mean I'm 100% for defunding public schools. I believe public schools need a minimum level of investment, right? So think about this. I'm making up numbers, but let's say you pay $10,000 a year in taxation for your student to go to the public school. Well, and let's say 2,000 of those dollars go for building maintenance, building construction, upkeep, and then 8,000, it's a very simplistic model, 8,000 go to the actual teaching of your student, meaning of your child, meaning that's how much goes to pay for the teachers, right? Well, if you reduce a school by, say, 30 students, you reduce the school by one teacher. That money should go with the student. The $2,000 that go to maintain the building, etc., that should stay with the school. So yes, the money should go with the student for the most part, but making sure that we still fund the infrastructure of public schools. You don't hear people talking about this. Why? Yeah. Because nobody wants to get into the details. Nobody wants to get into the nuance. And you have a bunch of fence sitters. I'm for school choice. And why am I for school choice? Not because this is some sort of Republican talking point. I'm so tired of people reading their talking points, but not understanding what they are.
Right.
I'm for school choice because think about this. When you go to buy, say, a car, you have so many choices, don't you? And we have some excellent cars out there. But if you lived in Yugoslavia during communism, you had one choice, the Yugo. I don't know if you remember it. You're a little younger than I am. But it was a piece of junk. Why? Because when you have no choice, there's no incentive to improve. That's what happened with monopolies. So if you create a monopoly in government schools or anything else, quality goes down. You need competition. And good teachers like competition. I work for a public school, but guess what? My public school competes. My public school is, nobody's mandated to go to my public school. If you want to go to law school, and as you said in the beginning of the show, just to be clear, I'm here in my personal capacity, but I'm also a law professor. And when my public school tries to get students, how does it do it? By competing. That's how we do it. And that's how all public schools should operate.
Always great insight with you. Before we go, let people know how they can get involved with your campaign.
Yes, so please check out my website, www.Steinbuch, it's spelled the German way, Steinbuch, for Arkansas.com. And check it out. There's a contact button there. My phone number's there. You can reach me any which way you like. Check me out on Facebook. Friend me on Facebook. I'm trying to get the word out as best as possible.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much, Jenny. Look forward to seeing you again.